Many thanks to Fatal Attraction Vanilla servers, Atlas, One Original DayZ servers, Clash Vanilla servers, Sgt. Pepper's DayZ Invasion server, Sea of Tools Cloud, BFK Free World servers, and Double Tap for making this video possible. The DayZ devs recently released a new blog post and finished an insightful stream, so in this video we're going to go over the new Frostline details that we got from the devs, answer a ridiculous amount of questions about boats, and explain why Debug Island has become a new way to die in DayZ. The recent dev stream and blog post revealed some additional information about the new map Sakhal, with the first being how interiors are going to be a lot more detailed than we first imagined. Every single building on Sakhal will have unique positions for furniture, including furniture variety for each building too, making no two buildings the same on the inside, with a focus on buildings feeling lived in or previously lived in, and environmental storytelling being a focus throughout too. During the stream, they also came across a new building that is likely going to be exclusive on Sakhal, a wooden house with 2 stories, many enterable rooms, a window at the rear that you can jump in and out of, and a destroyed wall that connects these 2 houses together, leading me to believe that it's this house from an earlier blog post. After this, they went up a hill and we got to see the use of a Sakhal water system, or rather how we're going to get clean water on this map. We're not going to have wells, these are going to be here instead, also shown in a previous blog post, with the latest blog post giving us samples of ambient sounds that are coming with this map. In a separate part of the stream, we got a lot of details on how boats work and their functionality and their future functionality too, with it being mentioned that boats are merely a way to get across water with relative ease, so there are no plans to add inventory slots to boats at all in the future, as they don't want players hoarding them or using them as some sort of mobile base. They then explained some future mechanics coming to boats, with one of them being the ability to sink a boat when you destroy it or ruin it, and giving us the ability to repair boats with a tyre repair kit only, emphasising that duct tape couldn't be used to repair them. There's going to be no way to repair the engine of a boat, which is going to be the only means to stop the boat too. You can't, for example, pop the boat and make it sink, or make it fly off like some silly balloons. They then mentioned that buoyancy of items is being considered at the moment, so when an item is dropped on a water surface, for example, it will just stay there on the top of the surface. It looks very unrealistic, and how they are currently looking into making items float and giving them buoyancy values instead, but there is no confirmation that this will be coming to the game. They're only talking about it at the moment. I've seen your many questions, and I've put boats to the test to answer all of the questions that I could find, such as, first of all, where they're going to spawn. On Livonia, they are only going to spawn along the river, with quite a few being available, and considering that this river goes from one side of the map to the other, it will likely be a massive hotspot now for players wanting to travel across the side of the map very quickly. On Generous though, many more will spawn, only spawning on the coastline though, again allowing for faster travel to higher tier areas such as the south of the map. In the far southwest corner actually, you can follow this river north to get to higher tiers, but I wouldn't recommend doing this. It's not very safe, and it's probably faster to just run or drive up there instead. You can push the boat if you get any complications, but again, this is slow, and trying to push a boat onto a vehicle isn't going to end well, considering that DayZ physics exist in the world. Likewise, trying to get a vehicle on a boat isn't a great idea either, but I'm sure that someone out there will try to make this work. I, for one, couldn't get it to work after many attempts, and after this attempt, I just gave up. You can place items on the boat. It creates a surface on top of it for you to drop stuff onto. Most items are allowed to drop on here, or you can throw items on here, but you cannot use placement actions such as setting up a tent or setting up a barrel, and these items won't stay on the boat anyway. As soon as you drive away on the boat, these are going to be floating in place, resulting in floating fireplaces on the water. Off of the water, the boat reacts to objects, so it crashes into a barrel for example, and objects that are triggered by movement, such as landmines, will explode if the boat comes in contact with them. The boat though is so tough that explosives barely damage anybody inside. Grenades and even a claymore mine this close will not damage a player. It will damage them very slightly, but it won't damage them any significant amount. It's a similar story when trying to shoot players inside the boat. The hull of this boat is super resistant to penetration, so there's no point trying to shoot through the boat, just shoot for the player model instead. While on the boat, you can shoot with ease while it's moving, and you can even adjust your position by moving around the boat as the boat speeds up. This is very strange, but it does work. Without the turbo, you will fall off still, so even when you're using the default speed, you can fall off and you need to keep up with the boat, or the driver needs to be very careful to make sure the players don't slide off the boat. But the speed isn't too bad, and the rocking of the boat doesn't reduce accuracy too much either. You can do a lot of damage from this boat, and it's pretty awesome that you can actually shoot from it. In addition, you can fit a huge amount of players on the boat, a whole squad that will easily fit on here. But if any of you die, you will slide off the boat into the water, and your gear won't be retrievable if that's the case. That will only happen if the boat is moving, but due to how we can now drive up to and create a surface on water, we can open our ventry over water. It might be possible to loot players killed in water now. I couldn't get this to work during my tests. You can skin the player, but the loot and the meat will end up on the sea floor. The only way to get a person's loot on a boat then appears to be if the boat is completely still and they're killed on the boat when it doesn't move. If the boat moves, they will fall off the boat. However, if a person is inside a sitting position and they die, they will stay with the boat, and you don't need to drag them off the boat to loot them. So you can just get onto the boat and you can loot them while they're sat in the dead position. However, with how players can very quickly abandon ship with the I'm a head out button, killing a player before they sacrifice their loot to the depths might be very difficult. To stop a boat, you can simply shoot the engine, but that's not going to stop them from jumping out, requiring about 400 damage to destroy from pristine. So if you shoot for the engine, in about 2 high-powered shots, you can destroy the engine, switching off the power to the boat, and in the future, like the developer said, we'll sink the boat to Davy Jones's locker too. Another way to lose a boat is by flipping the boat, which isn't easy to do. All players in the boat will start to drown if the boat is upside down and they're inside the sitting position. They'll begin to lose health very, very rapidly. You need to get out of this boat very quickly, with no real easy way to flip the boat back over unless you use vehicle parts and the throwing technique that I showed in previous videos. These vehicle parts, like with vehicles and players, act as roadblocks or collision objects for boats too. So you can use this to stop your boat from drifting around on its own, because boats do drift and they eventually will just disappear off the edge of the map. You can build yourself a dry dock base to push your boat into, staying in this location as long as any other vehicle does. The only time it despawns is when it's ruined, or when you sail off the edge of the map into the debug zone, resulting in the boat despawning as soon as there's no nearby players. This is really important to know, because with the addition of boats, players, I'm sure, will want to check out Debug Island, which is not too difficult to get to. So in getting off the boat and walking about 100 meters from the boat on Debug Island, it will disappear, leaving you and your loot abandoned on Debug Island, which is about 40 minutes of swimming to the mainland. Not that you're going to survive the cold water anyway, you will die from health loss from the cold water. So as well as being able to drive off the edge of the map, the boat can also be used in extremely low, shallow conditions. The swamp areas on Chernoris, for example, you can whip around on this. This looks really cool. And you cannot damage your boat or your engine by running aground either. So scraping it across the grass, for example, isn't going to damage it. In fact, damaging the left, right or front floaters doesn't appear to have any effect on the boat, but it likely will in the future, given that we will have the ability to repair them in the future. Also, crashing doesn't damage players inside boats. I'm not sure if this is going to change, but you can damage players by colliding into them at speed, which also works while your victims are swimming. It doesn't do a huge amount of damage, but if you're going at max speed, you can take off, say, maybe half of someone's health. If you're inside a boat, be aware of pirates trying to plunder your ship. Fresh spawn pirates will be a thing in DayZ, as they'll likely get onto your boat and start punching or shooting you before you can even stand up. It doesn't matter what their health value is. When it comes to climbing on a boat, it is not the same as climbing on land. When you're climbing on land, you cannot climb when you're below a certain health threshold, but when climbing on a boat, you can climb on at any health value. Falling onto a boat from a bigger boat works as you might expect though, and it does so in the gas, damaging players that aren't wearing protective gear, even underwater. So beware of pirates trying to sell you into gas to kill you when they're wearing NBC gear. You can easily jump out at any speed, even at max speed. If you jump out of a boat at 55 kilometers per hour, that's the max speed, you won't take any damage. It's about half the speed of a car, 55 kilometers per hour. So you can yeet yourself out of a boat by using the get out button, the same one that's used for cars, which will merely stand you up if the boat isn't moving much. So the same button does two different actions based on the speed of the boat. If you're in a boat and a server shuts down or it restarts, the boat will stop moving immediately and you will log in next to the boat if the boat is still there. It might not still be there because somebody might have taken it or it might have just drifted off. If you disconnect though, the boat will travel around 10 to 20 meters more if you were the driver, and if you disconnect when you're not the driver and somebody else just drives off, you will connect back to the server in the exact position where you got disconnected. You won't spawn back on the boat. You will be in the middle of the ocean. And finally, I would not recommend trying to do any sick tricks on the boat in the form of ramps or anything like that, because the boat stops very quickly on anything that isn't water and you risk flipping your boat. If you want to learn the basics of boats, seeing as you've learned the advanced stuff first, see this video for the basics. And if you have more questions, put them below and I'll test them in the future. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good day.